Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, October 2nd, 2022. Coming at you live from the Hockey Night New York studios on Long Island. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Big show coming up for you tonight. Mr. Chris Botta will be joining us as my guest co-host. And, of course, Mr. Craig Button from TSN also hanging out with us tonight. Because of the late start, we're actually going to go straight to break. We're going to call Craig in. Going to bring him up on the show, and then we're going to get rolling. So thanks a lot for joining us here tonight. We'll be right back.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Nikki, where should I go to watch the Islander game? Dad, where should Fran go to watch the Islander game?
Just tell her to go to R.J. Daniels.
Love the Isles? Go to R.J. Daniels and enjoy your favorite hockey team with their big screen TVs and in-game sound. R.J. Daniels also provides indoor and outdoor dining, catering, a vibrant late-night bar scene, and weekly live entertainment. Need great planials? Go to R.J. Daniels. Call or visit online at rjdaniels.com.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on, right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York, twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Joining us right now from TSN, the great Craig Button. Craig, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you, sir?
I am good, Chris. How are you doing today?
We're doing really, really good. Thank you so much for doing this, Craig. First question, as a former GM, Lou Lamoriello had an interesting offseason because before it started, Craig, he declared that he understood he needed to make hockey trades to make the team better, and those trades didn't materialize. He struck out in UFA, and that's okay. That happens, right? Teams strike out, especially on the big fish. But from your perspective, what's your take on the Islanders offseason? Because you could always try to make deals, but it takes 2 to tango, right?
It sure does, Chris, and you know that as well as anybody. And I think that, you look at the New York Islanders roster, and it looks very similar, if not almost exactly similar to the one that finished the season. And, I know Lou doesn't like to sit still and not make changes that can create internal competition within his group, or bringing in players from outside, whether it be from a trade or through free agency. But, I think right now you're looking at a situation with the Islanders, new coach, outstanding goaltending. I mean, there's no question. I mean, Ilya Sorokin, he is a top-notch goaltender in the National Hockey League. The health of the defense, can they stay healthy? There's not a lot of depth there. And so now you're crossing your fingers that you can stay healthy on the blue line. And that was something that plagued the Islanders a little bit last year. Up front, a team that was challenged to score is basically the same team coming back. So, I think that, and they're older. And, I think that you lose as the years go on and you become a little bit older. Yeah, you can be hard to play against. You can be good defensively. But if you can't score in this league, you're going to have a very, very difficult time having success. And more than that, the stress of not scoring creates stress throughout your lineup and with your players, because you know that there's no margin for error. So, while Lou didn't have an opportunity to make changes in the offseason, I don't think that means that he won't look to make changes here in the early part of the season. And if the team gets off to a slower start, I don't expect Lou to be waiting very long to do something to try to improve the team.
Craig, the one move that he did make was trading the first-round pick for Romanoff. As somebody who watched Romanoff play in Montreal, what's your opinion of it?
Well, I think what Alexander does is he gives them a really good top four defenseman. He plays with incredible enthusiasm and with a lot of energy. And I think he's really learned in a few years in the National Hockey League now how to manage that enthusiasm. I think that he gets so revved up to play, and sometimes that carries out on the ice. And you love that energy and you love that spirit, but at the same time, you got to manage it. And I think that he's at an age now where he's understanding that it's not just about energy, it's about managing it. And I think when you look at the year that Noah Dobson had last year, I mean, he really emerged as a real top-notch defenseman, and I don't think that's going to stop in any way, shape, or form. You know, Pulock and Pellets are really good defensemen, so I think you add Romanoff to a blue line. You know, let's not forget about Scott Mayfield, a really good goaltending tandem, and, you know, a team that knows how to play defensively and not give up a lot. You know, I think Romanoff really helps the team, you know, be stronger in that defensive area. But at the same time, and I keep going back to the goal scoring and the offense, you need offense, you need goals. And, you know, you can't just keep grinding away. You know, it's you know, the NHL is not about just sitting on your porch and whittling, you know, a piece of wood into a harmonica so you can make music. You know, the NHL is quick and it's fast, and, you know, you need to be able to have that ability to score. And, you know, there's not a lot of it with the Islanders. I don't see a lot of it. No,
I can understand that. After getting to the Final Four, to Game 7 of the semis against Tampa, we all know what happened last season. They are legitimate excuses. There's lineup problems. There's COVID. There's the 13-game road trip. Like, the season never got on track. So they make the coaching move, which I'll never understand and I'll never accept. And I mean, I understand I need to move on, but it was mindless to me. That said, as the season's about to start, preseason results notwithstanding, because I don't care too much about those either, Greg. I care about individual performances. Can the case be made? By the way, I mean, you're a sunshiny, positive guy. I'm not trying to force you into that position. I guess for the listeners, you know, can the case be made that I know I've tried to make on the show a little bit, that they could get it back on track, not be a cup contender, but be a playoff contender and have a strong season with everybody back? There is that narrative of, this is your chance, guys. You're all back. You're getting another run at it.
Yeah, I get that, though. But, like, think back to Game 7 of the Western Conference Final.
Eastern.
What happened to the Islanders? Eastern, excuse me.
You're showing your Calgary.
Yeah, well, no. I'm really, you know, I'm just, I slipped there. But thanks for correcting me. They lost 1-0. They couldn't score. So again, I think this is a team capable of playing sound hockey. But can they make the playoffs? A lot of things got to go right to make the playoffs in the East. It was 100 points last year to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. And so now you look at the Islanders, you know, after they got their footing halfway through the season, I would say I think they played pretty well and they showed what they were capable of. But there's no guarantee, Chris, that, you know, everybody's going to score at the rate that you expect them to or they expect them to. There's no guarantee that you're not going to have some injuries that are going to plague you. Every team goes through some moments of adversity, some series of adversity. But if you don't have the ability to grind through it and to find your way through it with depth or not, and it's great. It's great to talk about Simon Holmstrom coming and giving them some goal scoring. That's what they drafted him for. They drafted him to provide goal scoring. You know, it's a question mark. And so do I think they can be competitive? Absolutely. Do I see them as a playoff team? I think they're right on the margins there. But it will fall back to their goaltending, which again, I don't know. I've said it a few times. It's excellent, and you know, a large measure of a lot of things going the right way for the New York Islanders. Because if things don't go the right way, they don't have I don't think they have the ability to turn it in their favor. And I think the first half of last year showed that.
Great points. Two prospects. The Islanders are also thin in the prospect pool, so much so that a lot of focus in these parts are on Ratu and William Dufour. I was wondering, maybe take one of those at a time and give me your impressions of them, short-term future, but also long-term, right? Like, we understand they'll probably both be in Bridgeport. There's a chance Ratu may be being here. But what are your thoughts on those two players?
Well, Ratu is a really good player. I mean, he's that type of centerman that just drives play in so many different areas of the game, Chris. He's just a well-rounded, what I would call a complete player. He can provide the offense. He can provide the defense. He imposes himself on the game. And, it was really interesting, having watched him for as long as I've watched him, and you see this at different times for players heading into the draft year. And I still have no idea what happened to Atu in his draft year, but he just never got on track up in Karpat Oulu. And, obviously he ends up being a second-round draft pick, but I think the Islanders got a terrific player there. And, I think once he got out of Karpat last year and ended up down in Ukarit, I mean, he had a fantastic season down playing away from Karpat. And then at this iteration of the World Junior Tournament, I mean, he was just phenomenal. I mean, the argument could have been made that he could have been in the MVP conversation. He was in the MVP conversation if Finland had won the tournament. I mean, that's how good he was. I mean, he was a dominant player in his age group. And I think those types of signals always bode well for a player's, progression. And I'm not so sure, Chris, that he's not going to be capable of playing with the Islanders this year. Am I saying that it'll happen right off the bat? No. Get used to, just the demands of the schedule. I think getting through that early part and seeing where he's at. But I think he's a player that they can look to at some point during the season as somebody that can come in and help them.
I want to follow up. I want to follow up on that
sure,
with Ratu, if you know. Right. So he did play against men, right? This is somebody who's a little beyond his years, so you have less of that fear. As a GM, and I always wonder about this, I know it's up to the player ultimately to overcome the experience. And I'm also not going to say that the AHL experience or being in Bridgeport, Connecticut is coal mining or so bad or anything like that, right? But can the case be made to give this superbly talented forward a shot from the start, especially when the team is so thin and needs creativity?
Yes, I think I'd make the case. In fact, I would push for it based on what I talked about lack of offense. You talked about creativity. We know that he's a more mature player physically. He has played in the Finnish Elite League for 2 years, and you're right. Giving him that opportunity right from the outset, and then see where he's at. A lot of times, and we do this in the NHL. We take players and let's put them in the minors. Well, maybe he's ready to show that he can play and contribute in the NHL, and maybe just give him that that opportunity, whether it be 2 weeks, whether it be 10 games, whatever it may be, and let's see what he can do. Because I think that what he's shown in his age group, dominant player, 2 years playing and going through what he went through in his draft year. I think that's something that can really help you develop and understand what the challenges are. And, last year, and I happened to dial into a couple of the Islanders' preseason games, and I thought Atu played really well last year. I knew he was going back to Finland, but I thought he played really well in those preseason games last year. So I think the case can be made, and I would certainly jump on that bandwagon with you, Chris.
Absolutely, Craig. Sean here talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Just wanted to follow up with another member of the limited Islanders pipeline and pivot over to Willem Dufour. He obviously had a real breakout year with the Memorial Cup MVP. Just fantastic stuff, and really kind of caught the eyes and attention of Islander fans in Islander country. Maybe you can speak on him a little bit and what Islander fans might be able to hope and expect coming out of him in his future.
Well, here's what I would say. I think if you're hoping for him to be a good, solid NHL player, I think that's absolutely realistic. And I think the expectations, and I think, young players, and again, William I've watched for a lot of years, he was a big player and had a big physical stature to him. And when you're coming out of U15 hockey and you're coming into junior hockey, the things you were able to do kind of overpower people. I think for William, it was something that, he had to learn. He had to learn that size wasn't just something he had. He had to learn how to use that size to gain advantages, to hold advantages. He's not going to be somebody that's going to run over your opponent. He's not a power forward in the traditional sense of ruggedness and everything. But he's a hard player to handle one-on-one because of that size. And I think he really understood, hey, this is something that I can really use to gain and hold advantages. Number two, he's a really smart player. I mean, he's a penalty killer. He can play on the power play. He can make plays as well as finish plays. And I think that's another part of his game that is really rounded out. Like he understood that, like, hey, wait a second, there's more areas of the game that I can make an impact in. There's more areas of the game that I can contribute in. And I think as he went through the year with St. John and certainly into the Memorial Cup, and he was a good player at the World Junior for Team Canada, who beat Finland, Ratu's team in the gold medal final. He was a good player, and he was used in those areas of penalty killing and whatnot. And again, I'm going to jump over with Chris. Maybe to just keep his confidence has got to be really high right now, and maybe he's that player that you put right in the lineup to start with and see, hey, what can he do? Maybe he's the player that, given a little bit of opportunity, can give a little bit of an offensive jolt to the Islanders right from the outset, and he might be the guy that you say, hey, let's see what he's got here early on in the season. But I don't think there's any question he's going to be a really solid NHL player for a lot of years.
Very, very interesting. You have our attention, Mr. Button. My last line of questioning for you, buddy. You were so great last year on my media show talking about Lou Lamoriello. You told the story about him coming into a Dallas meeting and talking about his rules and stuff. And I know you know him, and you've done the job too. And you also were a player personnel director and a cup winner. I wanted to ask you about the future of the Islanders in that chair. There's a lot of people who just assume that Lou is in the final year of his contract because Barry Trotz was on a 5-year deal, and this would be the 5th for Lou. I don't believe that because I don't think the Islanders would ever say, and my guess is if anything was done with Lou, we wouldn't know about it in terms of an extension. And I would not. I'm not here to ask you like if you know, because actually I don't think anybody does. But I was wondering your thoughts on Lou's future, and also like is it we often assume that Chris Lamoriello, who I've heard wonderful things about, that he's his own man, that he would have his own rules, that it would not be exactly as his father did it, that he would be the next in line. So I wanted to get your take on Lou. I can see him doing this for at least a few more years, and if there's just going to be a succession to Chris Lamoriello.
Well, let's start with Lou, because I mean he's the headliner here, right? I mean Lou is ultra competitive. Chris, you know that. I mean he like last year not making the playoffs, like that would not sit well with Lou Lamoriello at any point in time. And and you talked about it earlier. The desire to make some changes to the lineup, either through trades or through free agency. And the one thing about Lou, not one thing, there's many wonderful things about Lou, but Lou is like a dog on a bone. He's not going to give up. And so there could be any number of things that he's working on right now that he's just trying to stay on and stay on and stay on. And, he has one thing in mind. He really is about excellence. And he understands where a team is at and if they're a Stanley Cup contender, but not making the playoffs, the excitement of the new building and for the Islanders, that's still there, but it will wear off quick at the team. And I think the team has the opportunity with some really good players in place to be able to take a step forward. And I think Lou would see it the same way. So I don't expect Lou to be sitting back and just waiting for something to come his way. That's not Lou's style. Lou initiates, and Lou like I said, he wants to be somebody that can make a difference for his team, because not making the playoffs and not being competitive is not something that makes him happy. And you're right. I mean, bottom line is Lou keeps everything close to the vest. And at the end of the day, when there's something to be announced, we'll hear it from Lou. And that's just the way it's always worked, and it's not going to change now. As for Chris, I'm a big Chris Lamoriello fan. I think Chris is a very underrated GM candidate in the league. I don't think he gets a lot of the notoriety, because Chris doesn't look for notoriety. He just goes and does the work. I know, talking to a lot of people in the American Hockey League, and people in the officiating department at the National League level, and a lot of different areas of the game, where Chris has earned the respect of so many, and it's a well-deserved respect. And as you said, he's his own person. And I think that when you can learn under the watchful eye of not only your father, but somebody that's had the success of Lou Lamoriello, I think that can bode very well for your future. To be straightforward with you, Chris McFarland, who went to the Colorado Avalanche as assistant GM and now was named the GM. I think Chris Lamoriello has a lot of those same qualities, and I think that and when there's GM openings, I know when people ask me who should be considered, Chris Lamoriello is always on my list of people that I think should be considered for any GM opening in the league. And certainly, you would think that if Lou is looking to step away, I don't feel any differently about Chris being a really strong candidate to assume that role with the Islanders if it should come that way.
I think all people named Chris should be candidates for the job. Wow. McFarland, Lamoriello, Botta. I learned under Mike Milbury. Come on, Craig, come on.
Well, Craig, last one from me. Just to keep it on the young guys here in the Islanders organization, they've had a couple of first-round picks here now that maybe are currently struggling to maybe fulfill their highest potential. Look at names like Anthony Beauvillier, Oliver Wahlstrom, Kiefer Bellows, and even some guys from the past like Michael Del Cole, who didn't really pan out. Just looking at your history as a general manager, how does yourself and a coaching staff kind of approach that sort of situation where you have a couple of guys who are maybe highly touted, maybe have high expectations, and you have to come up with ways or methods to get them going, and maybe it takes some guys a little longer before they really break out. How would you approach that?
Yeah, well, I think there's a requisite patience that comes with development with young people. I think in every walk of life, we want young people to achieve sooner than maybe they're capable of, but it doesn't mean they won't. So I think that's the first thing, and that's a general philosophy. But then the second thing is players have to show that they're taking steps. They have to show that they're taking steps in a positive manner on the ice, off the ice. That they're looking, they're demonstrating that they're understanding what it means to come in and contribute to a team. And I think when you start to, you mentioned the names that you mentioned, I think internally what ends up happening is you start to ask yourself, okay, have we given them the proper development? Are we being, or can they take that development? Are they capable of taking that development? You take somebody like Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson was in and out of the lineup in his rookie year. Right. And, Noah was somebody that just, continued to learn, continued to grow. And then we saw what happened last year, and that's just going to go up. Now, we've seen some really strong play from Anthony Beauvillier. I think what you're looking for from Anthony is that consistency, that ability to be a difference maker. I mean, Kiefer's going to have to be a goal scorer in the National Hockey League. So are you getting yourself in those positions to score? You're fighting off the checks. Those are the types of things. And then the third thing would be to go back and you're evaluating, okay, we were really patient with Michael Del Cole. What did we miss? Or did we miss anything? And what did we not, what did we not help him with? What did he not be able to offer? And I think you're always going through that evaluation with your players. But when you start to look at the depth of an organization and you start to say, listen, we need some players to be able to step up and contribute, and you're looking, you're going, geez, it's a pretty thin list right now. That's cause for concern. And that's when you got to go back and evaluate, the scouting process, the development process. And it's not that they're not good picks, but there's a lot that goes in from a player being selected to a player being able to produce at the National League level.
Craig, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your night.
I will have a great rest of my night. And Sean, thank you for having me. And Chris, always a pleasure to join you.
Thank you, Craig. I really, really appreciate it. You're the best.
Really.
Take care, Craig.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Craig Button of TSN. Settling in now here at Hockey Night in New York. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I kind of feel like my work is done here. We had a guest who really delivered. He was, he was kind of dark in the beginning about the current state of the team, this idea of bringing him back, which I appreciate. And by the way, he said they'll be in the playoff mix. We're not, and which is really no different than what we've said. Sure. But he's such a sunshiny guy. As I said, I thought he'd come on here and be more optimistic. That said, though, then when he started talking about Ratu in particular, it was really great to hear those things.
Yes.
And now, it's funny, one conversation, right, with somebody who's done the job now gets you a little more excited about the idea of, maybe this guy should be here for at least parts of the season, and if not earlier. So, my opinion on that's changed a little bit since last weekend.
Yeah, no, it's look, if anything, it's positive to hear, right? Whether it comes up sooner
you could tell
or later,
he was a big fan.
Right. So maybe he's a little further along than you thought. And maybe coming from Islander country, you're a little hesitant to make those sort of predictions or have that sort of hope that somebody like that's going to step in sooner than you think.
And that's why I always like to hear from people who aren't the Islanders broadcasters, right? And sure. We get it with any of these analysts, right? He won a Stanley Cup in Dallas. He was a GM. We could look at moves he made. We could look at draft picks he made, and Craig Button, and we know there are errors there. Nobody's here to say that nobody doesn't make big mistakes in that job. Sure. But to get that, he has no reason to want to brag about Ratu, how good he is, right? So when he says it, and this is a guy who watches the games and he was talking minutia at one point. This is a guy who watches. So to hear him say that was it meant a lot. It was great to hear.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention our wonderful sponsors, even though we're talking a little out of place here tonight. But hey, proud to be presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, their brand new location at 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, and of course, UBS Arena at Belmont. Also proud to be sponsored by RJ Daniels American Bar and Grill, located at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center, the best place to catch the game when you can't be at the game. And proud to be sponsored by brand new sponsor, Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Check out the tap room. Check out the beers. Great stuff going on out there. They got their brand new beers in the UBS Arena as well. Taps around the arena, the Stable Shaker, the Top Gun IPA, all great stuff with that. So, Chris, let's keep the show rolling here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we got more to talk about if you don't mind.
Yeah. I thought you usually go to breaks by now. All right, cool. I'm up for it.
We're all over the place. We started the show with a break. I'm sure our audience was loving that. We started with
a 12-minute break at the start of the show.
Yeah, and then we went right into the guest segment. So great stuff from Craig. And he had some nice things to say about Willem Dufour as well. So even though the prospect pool is a little limited right now, at least the guys that are in there are turning heads.
And you always, when you're going into a season, you want that hope too. I'm pretty convinced they're going to be in the race. They're going to have their great moments. They're going to have their down moments. They're not going to go on some incredible roll where they build up so many points that they're in it. They're going to have to fight for everything, right. But they're going to keep our interest, but also what makes teams excited. All we heard, through the whole Trotz thing was the play of the kids thing. Well, these are two more who will be at the professional level and somewhere. So I'm really excited about Ratu. And then the other piece of this for me is, what is Oliver Wahlstrom going to be? Because there comes a point, and by the way, this is not a Michael Del Call situation. That was actually, one thing I disagree with Craig. He's being nice. That was a wrong pick. It was just, it was not a good pick. I think they saw that early.
The thing about Del Call is he was the consensus number 5. He was taken where he was supposed to go. He just didn't pan out.
Yeah, yes. I always say it's up to the actual hockey guys, though, to get the pick right, not the Hockey News, not Bob McKenzie, not Craig Button. So that said, Wahlstrom, to me, is a big, big topic. I remember being asked last year, maybe on this show too, about Dobson and Wahlstrom. that was one thing I guessed right. I got a lot of other things wrong about last year, but I thought Dobson would get there. He did. He exceeded my expectations. I didn't think there was no reason for me to think that Wahlstrom was necessarily ready to do that. But now, where are we? Because we're looking at Rosal on a line with Parisi, and I don't know who, we don't know who. We got a week to go to the season, 10 days to go to the season, but those things got to be worked out. So my question to you,
Sure, yeah.
Sean Cuthbert,
That's me.
is
Glad you finally got that.
Wahlstrom goal total this year?
You know what? It's funny. I actually wrote some numbers down. And this is what I think is a successful season for Oliver, and I was going to pitch this to you. But I'm going 25, 15, 40. 40 points, 25 goals. And I think that's the least of what you want to see out of him this year because the spotlight is so much heavier on him because they didn't bring anybody else in. And we saw the lack of scoring from last season. He's a guy who really has to pick it up. He's going to be a very important piece to this team this year.
I'm going to put aside your assist prediction for now,
Okay.
because that sounds pathetic to me, right? It sounds like if I can skate, if I could skate like Oliver Wahlstrom, if I went out there without a stick, I'd get 15 assists. That's my point on that.
Botta.
But that said, okay, like 15 in 82 freaking hockey games, or 70 if he misses a few. So like, let's put I'm actually not even kidding. Like I'm not making fun of you or anything like that. But let's put it at this: if Oliver Wahlstrom gets 25 goals, and he's very capable, I think that's a reasonable amount. The Islanders will make the playoffs. It's one of the things that need to happen, including because they have the goaltending, but health and all that. Also, and I know I'm all over the place here, but I've been one of the leading proponents of it being a joke that Varlamov has never been traded with that big salary cap number. I don't want to give Lou too much credit, but if it's possible that he realized as the summer went on or the offseason went on that he wasn't going to be able to do anything, well, then it does make sense that he's like, well, you know what, gosh darn it, I better have two great goalies if nothing else. Yeah. And they do have, I think they have two great goalies. I think the world of Varlamov. I was hearing from people whining about a couple goals he let in the first exhibition game. Just stop with the exhibition game stuff, folks.
You know where we are. We're on Long Island. It's out of the country.
But let it go. I know it's the only game in front of us right now, and there's one going on now. Right. But let's just put those things aside for now. Anyway, two good goalies. I like your prediction on Wahlstrom. I would go so far as to say, 25, 23, 48. Something like that is reasonable.
Well, just from seeing him so far, he's more of a goal-scoring guy than an assist man. In fact, I remember joking last season, I think he started with like 9 or 10 goals and 0 assists. And I made some joke about him going the whole season without having any and scoring 50 goals. So.
But you feel like that shot should also create chances for other people, too, on rebounds.
Sure.
So, bigger, stronger, faster, according to Coach Lambert, and I'm excited to see him. You feel like he's a guy where it's never always going to be easy because of his skill set. He's somebody we're always looking at. He's somebody the broadcast is always focused on. He's somebody the whole team is always focused on. It's a lot to be on him. That's why it's easier in some ways for Dobson to emerge kind of out of nowhere. The Wahlstrom thing continues to be a fascinating topic.
And to piggyback on Oliver Wahlstrom, there's another guy that the Islanders might be hoping picks up some slack if he can't himself.
Who is that?
That's Kiefer Bellows. This is a guy
that's where I disagree with you.
Okay, well that's why we're here. We're gonna talk and we're gonna disagree. But Kiefer Bellows, he only got into 45 games last season. He put up, if I remember correctly, about 19 points. And he's a guy who signed a 1-year RFA contract. Looks like this could be his last hurrah if he doesn't put it together here. Do you think that he's somebody that can still make some noise and kind of, I suppose, extend his life as a New York Islander?
I feel like we're at the point where we're really close to knowing what Kiefer Bellows is, which is possibly an NHL player, and possibly somebody who's going to have a 10-year career and play 600, 800 games or something like that. But I just don't. I think at some point he's going to need to continue to work on the things to prove that he's a third-line player. I don't know if he's ready to. I just don't know if he's again above Del Cala. I hate making him the bar right now, but I'm not a big believer in Kiefer Bellows. I believe he's giving everything he has. I believe he's a good player, but he's not somebody who I'm looking for to step up and have a real surprise year. I would love to see it, of course.
Now, one more young guy I'm going to ask you about, and that's Robin Salo. Is he somebody who's going to stick and take that last pairing spot next to Scott Mayfield? Do you see him getting close to 82 games this season?
Well, I think he's going to stick in terms of starting the season, and I think they're going to give him a full run. I don't know if they're going to overburden him with being, quarterback one on a power play, but all signs. You could look at training camp, see who they're playing with, see where they're being spotted in games like Robin is, even right now, out there playing. And it looks like they're giving him every opportunity to make it. Is he running with it? No, probably not. But it looks like he's going to be here. I can't sit here and say he's going to be their 82-game defender, but it looks like Lamoriello and Lambert are convinced enough to give him that run to show. And it's his. Listen, if it doesn't go well after 30 or 40 games, they'll send him back to Bridgeport for seasoning. But he's going to be there at the start, I believe.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. So I guess we can touch briefly on just how they performed the preseason. I mean, you already kind of said, let's not give a crap about that, and I agree with it. The results don't matter. However, the fans are watching the game. 2 straight 4-1 losses, one to the New York Rangers, one to the New Jersey Devils. They're currently playing right now, actually. Hey, Mikey, you got an update for us on the game tonight against Philadelphia?
As of the break at the end of the second period is 2-1 Islanders.
Okay, there we go.
2-1 Islanders. Goals by Kyle Palmieri and Scott Mayfield in the second period to make it 2-1 Islanders.
Very good. Okay, so they got a lead. They scored more than one goal, so that's a positive move for there for the Islanders.
I laughed on right before we started the show because I saw a tweet from Kevin Kurz who mentioned how the Flyers lineup, wasn't a good one. One of the things about preseason, especially these first 3 or 4 games, is that the home team plays a better lineup. When they go to play at the Garden, when they go to play at Newark, their season ticket holders, the Rangers season ticket holders, the Devils season ticket holders, when they play the Flyers, their fans are there to see them. And they don't want to have the crap show like the Islanders had these first 2 games where it was boring and they were ineffective. So they tend to put their best foot forward on their home games. The Islanders, again, did tonight. The Flyers are dressing a B, and for the Flyers B squad, that's bad, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the Islanders should win. If you're a betting person going into tonight and you're hoping that all the betting outlets don't really follow this stuff that closely, you're betting the home team a lot because they're there to put on the show for the fans who are following this more closely.
Right.
When they go to Philadelphia, I suspect the Flyers Tortorella is going to play the lineup that's about his best lineup going into the season. That's why I don't take the results seriously.
Okay, no, that makes sense to me, and I think we're all just happy that Islander hockey is back.
Yes, of course we are.
Yeah, and we're getting there. The 13th will be here very, very soon. And there was just one other minor note from camp I wanted to touch on that we kind of missed last week, just because it's an interesting note to me, is Bodie Wild did not make it to training camp this year, and it obviously has a little something to do with what was going on with the COVID protocols and his refusal to get vaccinated. And it looks like nothing's changed there, even though the rules have changed around the teams and around the league and stuff like that. So I mean, just I guess from a PR man's perspective, you look at something like that where you have a player who's kind of touted. He was, I believe, a 2nd-round pick. He's a guy who was kind of estimated to eventually become an NHL player. When you lose a guy like that, he's not coming to training camp. I mean, how does that make a franchise feel?
I refuse to go into the rabbit hole of vaccines and all that stuff.
Sure.
Or if you got something to say about this, folks, tweet at Sean Cuthbert. Okay, give him your Twitter. Fine. But now let's just make this a black and white issue.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. We're not going to dive into that stuff.
My take on the Bodie Wild thing is Lou Lamoriello has a rule. And his rule, in this case, is you have to be vaccinated.
Right.
He's not vaccinated. He's not fucking playing. Even if his opinion on vaccines and everything else has emerged, listen, they had a fan-facing event the other day, and thousands of people were at the game unmasked, and and they weren't carded or anything like that. So we're not getting into that, right? Obviously, there was no care about that, and I'm cool with that.
Right.
I just think that almost proves the point. We're not concerned about this anymore. I'm glad I'm going to a play a couple of nights from now. It won't be a mask. I won't be carded when I go in. This is great. We go to games. I think it was just as simple as, Bodie, are you vaccinated yet? No, I'm not. Okay, you're not coming. End of story.
That's it. All right. Well, you brought up the Islanders meet and greet that went on yesterday.
I need to hear about this. When are we going to talk about it?
We can talk about it now if you like.
This
is now a good time for you?
You know when Francesa used to do the thing? They'd be like, this hour is commercial free. It was like, unlike the other hours that were 48 minutes of commercials. So this is great. I'm sorry. I'm just not used to this. I'm a fan of the show. I watch it. I'm used to breaks happening. So the Islanders, it was for full season ticket holders.
Yeah.
And it was sold as a meet and greet. Mm-hmm. You're a full season ticket holder.
Correct.
Or you used to have a piece of one or something like
that.
Yes,
exactly.
And so what happened? What were you promised? And how was your night?
How was my night? My night was fine because I wasn't there for autographs. Mm-hmm. I didn't get there in time for the scrimmage, so I missed that. I can't speak to what happened at the scrimmage. I'm sure it was fun, nice to see the players there, nice to be back in UBS Arena. That I can say enough for myself. It was nice to be back in the building. I'm feeling the fact that it's fall, it's October, that the Islanders are coming back. It was nice to be back there. So that was all good. I got to, hang out with some pals and see some people I haven't seen in a while, basically since last season. So all that for me was good on a personal level, but anybody who was there looking for an autograph probably didn't have as good a night. And that's because there was a lot of long lines. There was a lot of wait times. If you showed up expecting to get multiple autographs from multiple players, there's no way that was happening. So they afforded 2 hours from 6:30 to 8:30 for players to sign autographs. They paired them up at different stations throughout the arena, upstairs, downstairs, lobby, wherever it may be. And every line was long. And, you had your longer ones where, Matt Barzal was with Ryan Pulock. You had Anders Lee. Oh, Anders Lee was with Ryan Pulock. Barzal was with Ross Johnston. You had Sorokin and Varlamov. Those lines were probably the longest, and they stretched. And you had Islander staffers with these signs, which I guess was their best estimate of how long those waits were going to be, whether it was 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. Most of them you saw a sign for 60. You saw something maybe 90 for Matt Barzal.
And it was a 2-hour session.
Exactly.
So the math, okay.
So you really had to pick and choose who you were going to meet, who you were going to get an autograph from. And I imagine, with the way it was sold, where, hey, get, autographs from the New York Islanders. People were probably expecting to come home with a collection of autographs, and that just wasn't going to be the case because of how long these lines were. So I have to imagine, and I've seen it on Twitter a little bit too, is that there was a lot of disappointed fans with how things are run. Maybe they need to split it up or what have you, do it on separate days, separate hours, but there was some frustration. There was a lot of long lines and grumpy faces.
As you can imagine, I actually probably have a lot to say about this subject. So run some spots if you think. No. Listen, I worked a lot of those.
Yeah.
I am very empathetic with the organization in this case. One fan in the replies to me, Betsy, wrote, they tried. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the nicest summation, it sounds like, of what they did. I don't know, and I know this is going to be unpopular with fans, but I don't know if it's worth it for teams to try to do this anymore. For starters, I wouldn't call it a meet and greet, and that's the term that fans keep on using, that's what it was called. Meet and greet does make you want to think that if I bring my kid or if I go with my friend, I'm going to get to meet and greet.
Shake hands, how you doing?
Yeah, and if you think about it, if I'm going as one of the season ticket holders, do the math. They have 8,000, 10,000, 11,000. I'm going to get somewhere in that range of full season ticket holders. Mm-hmm. And even if not all of them show up, thousands of people are going. 2 hours, the math isn't great. I helped run a bunch of these at the Coliseum when we had 5,000 season ticket holders, and maybe 3,000, 4,000 people would show up. You're entitled to come to, depending on how many tickets you have in your account. You have 2, you bring your son. For example, you bring your daughter. Dads would come up to me, moms would come up to me. Hey, I would say, well, what do you want? Do you just want Ziggy Palffy? Like, is that your thing? Then get online. Or if you just want 6 guys on your thing, go see Brent Severin, go see Sven Butenschan, go see, I hate even dropping some of these names because, right? But, you would pick your spot back then. I can't imagine what it's like doing it at this beautiful UBS with this good team, with guys like that people really want, like Ilya, like Matt. So the numbers don't add up. So I wonder if you're the Islanders, and I wouldn't be surprised, is that, maybe this event next year is billed differently. I think as a fan, or I guess my suggestion to them would be give the folks a really, really good scrimmage, maybe mic some guys, have the coach address the team, have the players, maybe Anders Lee, a few people, don't think that because people, what happens is most people go away disappointed. And the point of an event like that is to make people happy.
Yeah, this is supposed to boost morale.
Yeah,
of the fan base.
and the chances are is that probably 33% of the people went home really happy because they got Barzal and they got, and they had that moment with their child or with their, and 33% probably like, well, that's okay. And then 33% probably went home saying, that really stunk. The scrimmage started early. They started at a weird time.
Yeah,
the autograph, is and so the Islanders did try. Good on them for trying. But I have a feeling when they regroup on Monday, because they get the game tonight, they finish up, when they have those organizational meetings on Monday, they're probably thinking, do we do this again? As for solutions about multi-night events, things like that, I just don't think that's practical. So they tried, but I'll defend them on the fact that it is really difficult to make everybody happy in this kind of a thing, because all they want is the art. And when all is said and done, call it a meet and greet, call it whatever you want. People just want most of the people, they just want the autographs, and their night and their enjoyment is going to be dependent on whether they got those autographs.
Right. And I guess at the very least you give it to them that they tried. And I don't know if there's a perfect way to execute something like this, but unfortunately, like you said, there's always going to be some portion of the fan base that's going to be left a little unhappy.
Yeah. Last thing I'll leave you with is we tried it once at Eisenhower Park. The Harry Chapin Lakeside Theater was outside, a little more spread out. And you had this, again, you had the thing with the lines were so long. Rick DiPietro, the team came in a bus from the Coliseum, came out through the back of the theater, did that kind of meet and greet where a lot of guys grabbed the microphones. Then they did the autographs. There was so much demand for Rick DiPietro that, bless his heart, he said, I'll stick around, and the bus left without him. And my neighbor, Joe Monaco, actually lives in Rockville Center. My neighbor wound up giving him a ride back to the Coliseum because, we hung around with my kids. So Rick did the right thing and, probably signed for 4 hours or so. But understandably, right, they're getting ready for a season.
Right.
And the guys wanted to get back. It was time. They had done their 2-hour allotment. Rick stayed until the last person's autograph was signed.
Wow. Good on him.
Really good on him. Barzal can't do that because they got to close UBS. That's the other thing. Sorry, one more thing.
Sure.
It puts the players in a position where sometimes they might look like the bad guy because maybe Barzal would stay till midnight because we know him to be a nice guy and maybe he would, but they can't because they got to close the arena. Yeah. And what happens is that person, that ticket sales person or that community relations person who's been assigned to chaperone him and walk him down the locker room, they're walking out, and then the fans are like they're not mad at Joey and Jackie and Lisa in sales. They're thinking Matt Barzal isn't that good a guy. So that part kills me because we know that's not the case.
Well, at least, look, there was a mandated time. It said, look, this is going to be over at 8:30. So at least it's not going to fall to the player that they refuse to sign anymore. It's like, this is the time we're closing our shop. This is the time we're getting out of here.
Let me rephrase it. It's just more like that disappointment thing, right? Where the kids is like, oh, we waited, and you don't want to see that.
And there did come a point when they did start closing off the lines where they stopped accepting people on certain lines because they were gauging the time. They said, we can't,
they have to
can't
do
take
that.
anybody else here. Yeah. So mixed bag. Mixed bag. The concessions are open. I had some food. They had a 25% off discount, so that was nice. I guess
never miss that.
Right. Little food, little ice cream, little burger. It was nice. So
it's not RJ's, but
it certainly is not RJ's. That's for sure. Ain't Blue Line either. But, Chris, I did want to bring this up. I know it was covered with Craig a little bit. I don't know if you wanted to touch on it anymore.
Sure.
But just the future of the Islanders general manager position. I don't know if you were satisfied with where you went with Craig or if there's anything else you wanted to touch on.
Well, he was really great talking about Chris Lamoriello. Mm-hmm. Those are similar things that I've heard as well. Listen, it would seem obvious that Chris is the heir apparent, whether that's a year from now, whether that's 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Okay.
And if that's the case, I'm okay with it. You always want to do a search, and you would hope that the owners would do a search too. But I would say it's worth giving Chris Lamoriello a shot. I did ask around in the last few weeks or so about would Chris be a copy of his dad in terms of would he feel obligated to do exactly what Lou did, because this is a unique culture that Lou instills. And I was told emphatically, no. Of course he'll bring some of those things, but he'll have other ideas.
So there might be hope for facial hair in the future.
Yeah, or a 6-hour autograph signing session at the season ticket holder thing.
Sure.
So there's that. I think Chris Lamoriello right now, if you were to ask me, I would say he's going to be the next general manager of the Islanders at some point. The other piece of this is I'm just not, unlike almost everybody else I hear from on social media, I think Lou Lamoriello will still be the general manager a year from now.
Okay.
If I'm putting money down, I'll just say A. Lamoriello will be the general manager.
That's a pretty
I put
safe
a lot
bet.
of money on that.
Sure.
A. Lamoriello will be a general manager of the team a year from now.
And if and when Lou does decide to step back from the general manager's role, do you think he still stays on in some sort of other capacity, whether it's president of hockey operations or something, or maybe, given his age, maybe it's something where he finally kind of rides off for the sunset,
Because, so I can't get involved, and you're not asking me to, but my opinion of this as a father, I think I could speak to that. I have 3 adult children, is that I wouldn't want to do that, right? Lou has his own thoughts on these things, but if Chris Lamoriello is finally, who's not a kid, by the way.
Right, yeah. Been around for a while.
Yeah. If he's going to get his general manager shot, I get it. I know Scott Bowman at times was, up until actually fairly recently, was an advisor to the Blackhawks. Call him an advisor or something like that if Lou wants to stay in it and the team wants him. But to have his dad as president of hockey operations or president or something like that while Chris is there would be undermining to him, because everybody will be thinking he's doing what Lou wants, who happens to be his father. So that's awkward. So I would not do that.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, what do you say we do take one of those breaks?
Okay.
And then we'll come back. So, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning into twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, your favorite podcast providers. Thanks for dealing with the technical stuff in the beginning, getting back here in the Hockey Night New York studio. We'll be back at Florida Media next week. But thanks so much for tuning in live. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the train rolls on.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia, while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for Islander fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the Isles' new home at Belmont, where it's poured from taps throughout the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewing Company, the future of Long Island craft beer.
Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and listening on your favorite podcast providers. A little break there. The train rolls on. We're going to get to our segments here. A little What's on Tap, and then we'll roll out to Questions Brewing, the hero of the week.
Pick up the energy a little bit. You're feeling a little...
Am I letting you down, Chris?
For you, yeah. You usually, let's go.
It's a sleepy Sunday.
We got to finish strong, man.
You're absolutely... All right. Shake it off. All right, folks, we're going to get into What's on Tap right now, so let's do that right now.
And now, it's time for What's on Tap. Brought to you by RJ Daniels, American Bar and Grill.
That's right, folks. It's time for What's on Tap. And there's more hockey games to be played, more preseason games to be played by the New York Islanders. Obviously playing the Philadelphia Flyers tonight. Last we heard, they were up 2-1. I'll get an update from Mikey in a little bit to see where we're at with that. But they're going back to play Philadelphia on Tuesday. They will be playing the Flyers in Philly, 7 p.m. start. Then after that, some more familiar rivals. Thursday, they will play New Jersey at home at UBS Arena. And then on Saturday, the New York Rangers come to town. 7 p.m. start there as well. Maybe the Islanders can get a little revenge on both of those teams since they got shellacked in their first meeting in the preseason. So, Chris.
Yeah, it's still 2-1, 14 minutes left. If you're listening to this later on in the week, just ignore this part of the conversation.
It means absolutely nothing.
It seems like a fairly ho-hum affair, although fans could please let us know in the chat or however they want to let us know. Flyers are out shooting the Islanders 20-14. It's not like the Islanders.
Par for the course.
I say it's not like the Islanders are running it up or
right.
But we should keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, well, that's what's on tap. Look, more hockey games to come here. That'll round out the preseason, if I remember correctly. That'll be all 6 games. So after that, we'll be getting ready for the regular season, October 13th, not that far away, when the Florida Panthers come to town to play your New York Islanders.
You and Christian will have the real preview show, the show right before the thing.
That's what we're looking at. Next week, preview the regular season back at Florida Media, so looking forward to that. And yeah, the fun rolls on here. We're here every week now. Every week. Hockey Night New York until April, hopefully May, perhaps June.
I was like that when I did my podcast last year. I was like I kept it going, but he's booking gas, things like that, and then I was like, you know what, they're not making the playoffs. So after the trade deadline, I had a little bit of a ease off until early April, and I'm not a guy who's going to be doing a draft preview show, for example. So I was able to cut it off. But it's really great to be here. It's nice to be here in town. Fans have
2 weeks in a row, Chris.
You've been great. Crew's been great. Fans have been awesome. Really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. You're having a lot of fun. And now it's time to talk about some heroes. So we're going to go into that right now. That's right, folks. When you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the B-Comp-Q in celebration of Mr. Compton being a guest on the show last week. That features boneless ribs, barbecue sauce, pickles, onions, all on a hero. So, folks, with that out of the way, we have a special Hero of the Week coming at you here. Obviously, again, we're just getting started with the games here, so we decided to go a different route. And the Hero of the Week is none other than New York Metro Blind Hockey. Now, they reached out to us on Instagram, on social, and was telling us about the program. And a great thing going on over there. So basically, it's a New York blind hockey program where they're trying to raise awareness. Not too many people know about it. But they're actually getting set up at UBS Arena on the 13th for the opening game against the Florida Panthers. They're going to have an information table there. They'd love for people to come by and say hello if you're going to be at the game, learn about blind hockey. You get to meet a Team USA player and really get to know more about everything that's going on with blind hockey. Because I'll be honest with you, Chris, I didn't know that there was a team. I didn't know there was a squad or anything.
It's an amazing thing. I don't know if every team or club or league does the same thing, but I have seen it played, and basically the puck or the ball, it beeps, and it's an incredible thing to see. It's really, and just the fact that everybody's out there and loving the game is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I was reading a little about it. The puck is larger, and apparently they have metal balls inside of the puck. So they clang around in there so they can hear the puck.
I've seen it with a beep instead of the clang,
right.
But that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So not only are they going to be there with an information table, but they're actually also going to be the charity of the game. So you'll see them going around the arena. The 50-50 is going to go towards their program. So it's going to help the New York Blind Metro Hockey program. So definitely get involved in that. It's a great cause. And also, if you're even more interested, you can check out at The Dented Puck on Instagram. It's a podcast. They also kind of champion the program as well. So definitely get involved in that if you're interested. But there you have it, folks. Your Hero of the Week, New York Metro Blind Hockey.
One of the most memorable things I was involved with when I was with the team was Miriam from Forest Hills. Was a blind lady, lived in Forest Hills, who called Joe Beningo's show on WFAN overnight. Was a huge Islander fan and listened to every broadcast of Chris King and Seany and Barry Landers and everybody else. And we brought her to her first game, and Kate brought her down to the ice, brought her to the press box. The sounds of the game, everything. Rick Riley of Sports Illustrated wrote a column about it for the magazine, and like what can you say, right? The game can be for everyone, and these great folks, prove it as well.
No, it's fantastic, and it's just great to see the game growing in so many different ways, and people getting involved and just falling in love with it, like we all do here. It's the best game on the planet, and it's very inspiring to see people in that position, go that extra mile to have, get involved, have a program here, and it's just awesome stuff.
And great on the Islanders. You're saying they're having them at the tables, and they're okay. That's great. Great job by the team.
Yeah, no question about it. So, folks, that is your hero of the week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the BCompQ, named after none other than Mr. Brian Compton of NHL.com.
Do they do prosciutto over there at Donnie's place?
I'm pretty sure they do.
Because if I had a sandwich, it would have prosciutto on it.
So you're pitching right now.
I'm just saying.
You're making a little pitch here.
A little mozzarella.
To Chris Botta.
I mean, it would be things I want. Of course, they'd put tongue on it, or they'd do some white ass thing probably. But my thing would have
tongue and sheep's head.
Yes, exactly. There'd be some.
Well, we got an in with Donnie Bagel, so we'll see what we can do here. I mean, you get more involved with the show, so we'll see. That's 2 shows in a row. Maybe got a chance. I don't know.
That's true.
I mean, he made Christian and I eat 2 sandwiches each, I think it was. We basically had a sandwich eating contest to earn the right to have a sandwich.
Okay.
So
regardless,
he might be nicer to you.
Regardless of any Islander connection I have, me and my friends in Hicksville growing up, we spent so much time at Bagel Boss and the family place. We probably paid for some of Don's upbringing and his
wow, you're laying it on thick.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of money there at 2 a.m. on Saturday nights, year after year after year.
Wow. All right, Donnie, the pressure's on, man. Botta wants a sandwich. Don't let him say any different. All right, so let's keep it going here. Let's get to questions brewing. Let's take some questions from the audience. So we're going to play the little music here, and we'll get going.
And now, it's...
That's wrong. That's the wrong button, Sean.
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company.
That's right,
Not to be confused with the Lost Host.
Listen, I'm trying my best here, right? I'm under a lot of pressure tonight.
Lost producer, lost engineer.
Yeah, a little
lost
bit.
Lost farmer.
Lost location, but we're here. We made it. So, Mikey on questions. We're on the couch. You can't see him because we don't have the capabilities to show him tonight. But Mikey on the couch is here. He's got the microphone. So, buddy, fired up. What kind of questions you got for us tonight?
First of all, it's probably better they can't see me.
I agree. Always.
Always.
You said it. We didn't say it.
Before we get into questions, Bruin, I do want to say that based on the feed I'm watching here on for the Islander game, it is just under 11 minutes. The Islanders are still up 2-1.
Okay.
Let me also just say it's an absolute joke that the game is not broadcast in a real way. Streams, I'm sure the production's good, and we're moving into this world of streaming, a league that I work for.
I know Chris King's calling
with Apple and all that. But there's MSG, who I'll often defend their practices because they do a lot of good things too, MSG Network. There's just no reason to not throw some of these other games on. This is bullshit that this game's not on right now. On TV. Not that we'd be watching it because we're doing the show, but
that's why we're doing. We're like, it's not being telecast, so we might as well just do the show.
You're paying the team millions. You spend millions to show 82 regular season. Can you just show all 6? And do it in a right way on the network. They're playing it. I'll leave it at that.
No, not only
Some
that.
of my best friends work there, so I want to.
Well, then I'll take over and say not only that, but the games that they have broadcast are only against the Rangers and Devils, and they're using the Rangers and Devils telecast.
Well, they did at home. Now, I think when they play those teams, they're going at UBS.
Okay.
They're going, and again, I could live with it. I'm not into wasting money, so I know some fans have said they should have both broadcasts on, one on MSG, one on. No, that's okay. We don't need to throw money into the ocean. We could just have one brand, right. But have Brendan if he's around, and have Butchie, and he's getting so many gigs now. Let have them do the games, and because they need the practice too. So I have a feeling they're going to be working those, if not outright doing it part of the broadcast. That would be my guess.
All right, Mikey, you're up, pal. What do you got?
Sorry, Mike. Yeah, you were trying to get on that.
No, that's all right.
That's Chris Botta.
It's all right. I laid that up for you guys to go on a little tangent there, so it's all good. So our first question is from T-Boyle13, Questions Bruin. It is. It's very to the point. When is Lou getting fired? Very to the point.
Well,
I'll piggyback. Do you think there's a possibility he could?
He's not going to get fired this year. He's not going to get fired, before the draft. He's not. None of that. Nothing's happening soon. He's likely going to be the general manager when the next NHL draft happens in 2023. What has changed, and he's a realist, is when you fire the coach, then they look at you. Right, I remember talking to Milbury about this. Others, right? We've seen this in football when you fire the coach, you now are like, okay, well, we can't blame the next coach because you're the guy who gave him. I got to stop hitting that. You're the guy who gave him the players. So the eyes are on him right now, but there's nothing at all whatsoever. I think he's going to be the general manager for at least one more year and possibly 2 or 3.
I agree.
Okay. Well,
I think he's got a little more fire under his seat because of what Chris said, and also just because of the year that they had last year. This is a team that has to pick it up. So, I'm with Chris. I don't think he's going anywhere within the next year or two.
One more thing to look out for. Who is going to be available a year from now? He's actually available now. But who's going to be available in that?
Oh.
Who's one of the best? Who's one of the best people in hockey? Respected, successful.
You talking about a guy who might be willing to move on to another position?
Yeah. So Barry, it would be a really, really interesting thing. I think Barry Trotz. I want him to be the coach of my team.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think I talked about this before. Peter Laviolette told me for years, he said, the place to be is in the office because you don't get fired. I get that. I hope it's okay that I said that. Peter told me that. And he's, 20 years later, he's still coaching and hasn't came close to getting a GM job. So I get why Barry wants to shop for the groceries is a term that Bill Parcells used a long time ago. But let's say the Islanders do pratfall this year. They don't make, which I'll describe as not making the playoffs. Now it's like, okay, well, where do we go from here? Well, Ledecky and Malkin, there's this guy who they love. He liked being here. He did not want to get fired despite all this ridiculous theories that are out there. And, it's possible that he could come back as a coach, as something else. Maybe they give him the opportunity to be coach with some say, with even Chris Lamoriello as general manager. I don't think you could rule out, until Barry Trotz gets a job with somebody else, and he will next summer, I don't think you could rule out Barry Trotz coming back to work for the Islanders. Is it a bit of a long shot and something fanciful to think about? Yes, but you absolutely cannot rule it out. We know he loves it here. We know his family's comfortable here. He bought a place in Nashville. He's not moving back to Winnipeg that people thought. His home is in Nashville. So it's a possibility. I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's worth watching.
Very interesting thought, Mike. Make a note of the timestamp on that for a clip for during the week. But
yeah, you got it, man.
Definitely an interesting nugget I wasn't expecting tonight. But I see there's a follow-up question, so why don't you read that off for us?
Yeah, I'm about to. So Trottier19 follows up on that question, Bruin, and says, if the Islanders are out of the playoff race by Christmas, why wouldn't Lou get fired? Don't the ownership group want accountability?
Yeah, that's something we all say as passionate fans, but it doesn't happen. GMs are, yes, GMs sometimes will be fired in March or before the trade deadline. That isn't, GMs aren't on the clock like coaches are when the team's coming up short. So it wouldn't happen. What did he say? Did you say like around Christmas?
Mm-hmm. It said if they're out of the playoff race by around Christmas.
Okay, for starters, they're not going to be. So that's like let's put it this way: it's a hypothetical. They'd have to really crap their pants to not have a chance at a wild card spot, in December. 2 months into the season, or Christmas 2 months into the season, 2.5 months. So that's not going to happen. The only scenario would possibly be, okay, it doesn't work out. Let's throw out Lou with any GM, with any team. We're going to fire this guy. You know what? Let's fire him before the trade deadline because this isn't the person we want making those moves to sell assets or to, maybe he does something out of desperation. That sometimes happens. December is not your time frame. all that said, I think this is a team that's going to hang around enough that none of those things, they'll be bandied about on social media. And we get that. We're fans. We love it. We enjoy it. We're passionate. I'm mad at the Yankees right now. I don't like Brian Cashman. Okay. Like, I don't think he should be jamming the Yankees. Right. So, and he's won World Series. So, these are things that are not going to happen this year because the team's is good enough. Those goalies, gosh, they are going to say, if Luke cared about having his job saved, and he's way past giving any fucks about any of that at this point of his age of his career. If he did, he can sit there and go, man, I got 2 goalies who stop 90% of, we'll see how high that number is. So, and some pretty good D2. That's going to be enough to keep him around. The conference isn't that good. Who's running away with the wild cards? You believe in Ottawa?
Not yet.
No, okay.
Not yet.
Who do we believe in? Who's making the leap? Detroit, because they signed 4 average guys on the first.
No,
day
I
of
think
free
you're
agency.
right. I think it's going to have to be a real failure of a season for the Islanders not to remain ahead of teams like Detroit, Ottawa, Jersey, Columbus. There's some of those guys have made improvements. Obviously, Gaudreau and Columbus, but there's still some question marks with those guys. But I mean, is it going to be enough to supplant what we think is going to be the Islanders this year? I don't think so, and which is why I pegged them for a wild card for the last couple of weeks.
They will hang around the playoff race longer than I'll still have not figured out that this show is on camera, and I keep on doing stupid things with my hands in front of my face and
very intelligent things, Chris.
Yeah, I'll be doing this for I'll be doing this for a year, and the Islanders will still they win 3 in a row here. They're in the race. They're in the head. That's my take on that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. And Coach Lanebert wants just because of what you brought up with Barry Trotz, please tell me that we can rule out Milbury coming back.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's go, Mikey. What do you got?
Mike turned 70, and nobody older than 70 runs. Oh, wait, that's right, Luda. No, Mike is. No, I joke about because Lou is the youngest, however old he is, person you'll ever want to meet. Mike is retired and enjoying life.
There you go.
All right.
By the way, that opening thing where you say if you're a Milbury survivor or something like that.
Yes, the old intro. Yes, if you happen to be a Milbury survivor, yeah.
It's just funny to hear that when I literally worked at his side for however many years. It's funny to hear that, but I get it. I totally get it.
All right.
Coach Lambert said, "Thank God," and I'd like to beat him with my shoe.
That's not nice.
It's not very.
I mean,
nice.
I get the joke.
I do too. I suffered a little bit through the process as well.
I mean, the funny thing about that is that if Coach, and again, this doesn't change anything with the mistake, but if Coach Lambert wound up at your joint having a beer with Milbury, he'd have the greatest fucking night of his life. He would not want to leave. He'd laugh his ass off. Mike would tell him stories. So I totally get the hatred for it. But
he can still be a cool guy even if he wasn't the best GM.
Yeah, exactly.
One doesn't mean the other.
No, and what we needed was for him to be
it's kind of like Sean. Like
here we go.
He's not that great, but he's cool to have a beer with.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take that. I'd rather be better to have a beer with than a host of this show. No, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm doing my best here.
Coach Lambert had the next questions brewing. It is, can we expect MSG to not cover any Isles games that interfere with Hockey Night in New York shows?
We actually have a deal in place with MSG. They are forbidden from airing any shows while we do our show, so they very graciously stepped aside. We got in touch with them. We said, listen, we're doing an 8 o'clock show. And they said, well, can we at least do the first period? We said, absolutely not. And they obviously stepped aside. And there's your answer. They're not going to broadcast any games when we do a show here. If only that were the case. Great question. That would
have been great for us. The next question comes from Mike4652CO. Although we haven't spoken as much about him, sure looks like I'm going to probably butcher this name, and I'm apologizing.
Oh, I saw this one. I was dreading this one.
E2A2 Lucas has shown some promise. What are your observations?
Who?
I'm sorry, Mike. I hate to break this to you, but I don't have any because I haven't been paying attention to him. And maybe that's bad on me, but who
are we talking about?
A gentleman in the Islanders prospect pool, I believe, that's been getting into training camp. And I have not been focused enough to give you a good answer to that question. I don't know if I speak for Chris as well, But we will be having the likes of Andrew Gross, Stefan Roser coming up soon on the show, so they'll be able to give you a much better answer.
It would be a good question for Craig Button. I always the reason why I don't like to do draft shows is right. You have people on who know the stuff, but that would
so don't call you in June.
Well, and we're not at camp. Nobody. By the way, hardly anybody's at camp. Everything's closed other than the thing that you were invited to that you didn't go to.
That's correct. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right.
But who's the player? How are we spelling his name?
Yeah, Mike, why don't you give us that one more time?
I'm going to just spell it. I'm going to spell it because I'm afraid I don't know
take
exactly.
A half hour to spell it.
I don't know the phonetics exactly.
I got you. E2 Leucus.
Oh, okay. I thought he was talking about Ratu.
No. He's not that drunk. He's not that drunk.
Whoa. I'm not drunk at all.
It threw me off. Okay, yeah. No, that's a question for others.
Yeah, sorry.
That's a question for some guy, not Kevin Garza at The Athletic, to get really wrong about how good he's going to be or not.
Yes, indeed.
All those
Dom Leshish,
yeah.
All right. Our next question, Bruin, comes from Coach Lanebird again. It is, put your coaching hat on. Where do you put Bailey in this lineup? He has played everywhere throughout his career, but what is the best fit for him now?
Again, that's all you.
I'm gonna say third line next to JG Pageau. Put him on his wing there. You know, I don't know if last season is indicative of the trajectory that Josh Bailey's career is taking at this point at his age and whatnot. I don't know if last year was just kind of a fluke, if he's going to get back to, his 40, 50 point production. We'll see. I mean, I think he had 40 last year, but, you're looking for him to get 50, 55, I suppose. But look, in a perfect world, Oliver Wahlstrom's lighting it up. Palmieri's back, to form. Right, and then you have Anders Lee. Anthony Beauvillier is doing his job too, right? So you more or less filled up your top six wingers. If all those guys do what you hope that they do. And then maybe a guy like Josh Bailey slots in on the third line. So that's where I'd have him. But I guess if you want to look at it another way, they have a lot of guys who they can run up and down the lineup where if you're not getting a good look from one guy, you can put Bailey in the second line. You can put him next to Barzal and see how it works out. But to start, third line for me.
So, and who's playing with Barzal?
Well, if the way things go the way it seems to be going, you're looking right now like Zach Parise and Kyle Palmieri might be lining up with Matt Barzal to start. Is that going to get anybody excited? Not sure, but
honestly though, but I'm okay with running with Palmieri. I'm okay with that.
He was supposed to replace Eberle. I mean, that was the whole point.
And that's why like that's what he is there for. So I'd rather it be a veteran, Barzal, you give him credit. Like all signs point to him re-signing and perhaps very long term with the team. And we are still in this thing where he hasn't been fitted with wings, and we might be talking about this for another year or so. But he's committed to keep on coming back. So bless him for that.
The conversation hasn't ended since Alexei Yashin. Yashin didn't have wingers. Tavares didn't have wingers, and now Matt Barzal doesn't have wingers. That's pretty much how the first line has gone.
But give me the veteran who at least has done it before, even though Palmieri was part of the reason for the bad first half. Parise, we're all saying it. You would think, right? 20 years into the league, and his father played, right? So, but how does Brendan say it?
I think he says Parise,
and so this is where I brought it up. So I don't want to go down there. Okay, it's just
I'm not sure.
I feel like. I get why we love him. I know I've been by myself for the most part, giving him some criticism. But let's not forget what Zach's first 30 games looked like last year. And the fact that he came close and the fact that he tried. And the fact that he, he's still, I believe, it's somewhat epic in terms of futile production in those first 30 or so games. And that's when the season ended. So forgive me if I'm not over the moon about this idea of him being on the first line.
That's entirely fair. The one thing I will give Parise is that even though the goals weren't coming in the first half of the season,
so that's what you need them to do. You don't get points for not doing it.
No, I get that. I understand that.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
But he probably was the guy who busted his ass the most in the team.
Yes,
and then he finally was rewarded for it in the second half. Are you all right?
Yeah. He busted his ass. He did.
He tried real hard. All right.
And that's not like we shouldn't have. He was a guy who came to camp, on a 1 year. Now he's come back and signed for the same thing.
Yeah.
By the way,
he's going to bust his ass again.
Yeah. So that is not, again, he's the best. Like we absolutely love him for a reason.
I don't know, Chris. Sounds like you're being a little negative.
I'm talking. It's a failing of management that it isn't a better situation than that.
I think that's fair. Okay. I agree. Michael?
I just want to say you left out Michael Pekka not having wingers as well.
Hey, he had Mark Parrish and Sean Bates. He was a second-line center.
All right.
Yeah. Just stick to the question. Mike, I said this to you last time. Just stick to the questions. You're outing yourself here, man.
I am. It's all right. Okay. The next question is, because that's like clearly all I do. And all I should do, apparently, is from Mike4652CO again. I remember when Dal Cole was drafted, he was highly touted and went in the predicted area draft-wise, like you guys mentioned earlier. We now know things didn't work out as planned. What do you think went wrong?
Wow, what do I think went wrong? Well, look, not all prospects pan out. Not all top 5 picks pan out. And the Islanders, and see, it does make you wonder, though, right? Because you have guys like him, and then just to think of names off the top of my head, Griffin Reinhart, right? I think they picked him 4th overall. He panned out to nothing, but obviously ended up in one of the best trades for the New York Islanders in recent history, where he kind of ended up being part of Mike Barzal coming over, right? But yeah, there does seem to be a history here, and you even look at Nino Niederreiter. Now, that was a total disaster. The guy never should have even played that first year when he was on the 4th line. Jay Pandolfo and Brian Ralston, and he didn't score any goals. I mean, that was a money thing.
That was management's fault.
Yeah, no, that was reaching the cap floor. So that wasn't Nino Niederreiter's fault. He ends up going to Minnesota and then Carolina. He becomes a 25 goal scorer. Yeah. So, but you look at these guys like Dal Cole and even Ryan Strome, good rookie year, and then kind of just fell off, right? He only got his career back together when he ends up on a line with Panarin, right? So there does seem to be a history here with the New York Islanders and top 5, top 10 picks where they're really not panning out the way they should. And whether it's because they're listed number 5 in the THN or TSN rankings, whatever the case may be. But I don't know, and it makes you wonder: is this a product of the Islanders' development system? Is this who they have in charge there? I know that there's Islander fans that give out about Brent Thompson and not properly developing players at Bridgeport, and so it does beg the question: is this something operationally with the Islanders, or is it more just picking the wrong guys that they think is going to pan out to be a good player who ends up not putting it together either because they can't skate, they don't have the hustle, they don't have the determination, whatever the case. But yeah, I mean, it does make you wonder what happens with those sorts of players when they're so highly regarded.
Yeah, every case is different. In the case of Dal Cole, sometimes it's as simple as you don't get to see. You could project, but you don't get to see them play with the men of the NHL. It was all based on his time in the OHL,
right?
And sometimes that just does not convert over. He could still go on to play in the NHL, but not at that point. So every case is a little bit different. The Islanders have their system of drafting. I'm aware of some of the inner workings of that. The Rangers do too. The Rangers recently, only a couple of years ago, changed their scouting director. The Rangers have had some big, they've had some big misses. And even, it's funny, they have a really good team, and in some parts they are led by young players. But even that said, those picks would not have been their picks if they could do it all over again. So the draft, it's so corny to call it a crapshoot, but it really is wild. I mean, nobody has the book. We used to say this about Lamoriello's guy 20 years ago. Nobody has so mastered this that teams are constantly offering. You would offer a guy or a woman $5 million a year if they had emerged as this person who constantly got the draft right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
And nobody gets those kind of deals.
Right.
It's great that Chris McFarland, got promoted because Joe Sakic didn't want to lose him. That doesn't mean, and they won a Stanley Cup. It doesn't mean McFarland's got all the answers.
Right.
It doesn't mean he doesn't have, his mistakes. You're relying on your staff. But it is amazing that all these years we've been around the game, I can't think of one person that you would say is absolute gold in terms of their batting average when it comes to the draft. There are some better than others. There are some who've been consistently wrong, disastrous, I get that. But there aren't any stars of the scouting business. There still aren't.
Fair enough. Michael, you got anything else for us? Are you still here?
I am still here.
I would think
Well,
Coach Lambert has like 7 more.
It's Coach Lambert.
No.
He has one more. He has one more.
All right. Fire away.
It was. He wants to know if he's the only one looking forward to the Flyers being not good this year and watching Tortorella's press conferences.
Hey, John's always interesting.
Entertaining.
Yeah, they'll be,
I still don't get that fit. I don't know why he's coaching there.
The fit was they needed somebody to kind of play to the crowd there. Flyers, Philly, we're tough. And he was a guy doing TV who wanted to get back into it. They would not have been his first choice, I'm sure. They might not even been in the top 20. Both sides had a need. He did a year away. He's refreshed. Good for him. Happens to be, kind of like I mentioned, Wilbur, happens to be a guy with a really, really good heart who plays a part on TV. But there is this other side to him too that I also experience as a writer, a kind side. Listen, he's got some screws that sometimes aren't always tightened in, but he's a good guy. He's a good hockey coach. I think he's a temporary good fit for the Flyers, and that he'll make them interesting for a year or two. Doesn't solve their problems, though.
I think interesting is the right word to use there. Michael, is there anything else on the board for us?
That is all, my friends. Those are all the questions brewing.
Well, that was a great extended version of Questions Brewing. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Even you, Coach Lambert. We appreciate the help. So don't worry. Don't be shy about asking multiple questions. That's no problem. Don't let Chris bully you. All right, he just showed up.
Even the questions that weren't good, they led to some,
some good discussion. Absolutely. So I think with that, we can wrap it up here. I think we covered all bases. We obviously went a little longer than expected. We started a little later. And once again, thanks so much to you guys for hanging with us tonight live. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a podcast. People could just stop it, right? If they don't want to hear the last 12 minutes, or if they lose, right? We can just keep on.
I mean, they can literally hit the mute button whenever you speak.
For example, yes.
And only listen to myself. Yeah, it's great. Everybody has that option.
That's what most people do when I speak, I imagine.
I actually almost just hit the mute button for you. Because once again, speaking out of turn, I don't know who the hell you think you are, Mike.
Mikey on the couch.
Yes, you are, Mike.
I'm not even on the couch today.
On the couch. You're close, though. You're close to the couch.
We had our moments, but on a serious note, and not to take anything away from us, because I think we had some good chatter, but I would say to the fans who, if they listen to the 20 minutes of Button, he was outstanding. He has an independent and very highly educated opinion of important issues around the Islanders, including their 2 top prospects, what to do with them, the future of the jam chair. We left them with that. They could judge the rest of it if they want.
No question about it. And with that, we're going to cue the music and get on out of here. So, folks, once again, want to thank you for tuning in to Hockey Night New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite podcast providers. Huge thanks to Chris Botta over here for filling in once again for Christian What's-His-Shits. Couldn't make it tonight. Once again, covering some other New York teams. But Mr. Christian should be back next week to jump back in. We're going to have some great guests hopefully for you. We'll let you guys know. We firing it back up Sunday night, hopefully at 8 o'clock. Either way, check the socials. We'll let you know. Huge thanks to Craig Button of TSN for joining us. Great stuff from him. And, of course, a huge thanks to our sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, official partner of the New York Islanders and the best deli around. Maybe Chris Bott will get a sandwich one day. Also, huge thanks to RJ Daniels American Bar and Grill, located at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center, the best place to watch the game when you can't be at the game. And a huge thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Minneola. Fantastic stuff going on there. Check out the merch. Great hat here on my noggin. So, folks, thanks once again. Chris, where can we follow you on Twitter?
At Chris Botta NHL.
At Chris Botta NHL. You can follow myself at Seany Hockey. You can follow Christian Arnold at C_Arnold01. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Hockey Night NY. Huge thanks to you guys. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. Big thanks to Mikey on the couch, somewhat. And hey, Ed hung out too. Ed hung out. He was here. Did a great job sitting down, man. You're awesome. So for Chris Botta, my name is Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. Have a great rest of your night.
2-1, 3-1.